Welcome to this episode of Seeking Truth and Justice, hosted by Lawrence Lucas, produced by Marcel Reid on TS Radio, founded by Marti Oakley, a network dedicated to fighting corruption.
And Dr. Stein, can you tell us a little bit about how you got here? Why are you that interested in talking to us about something as small as black farmers and their issue, women and their issues at the U.S. Department of Agriculture? Why?
So just first let me say what an honor it is to be here with you, who've really been leading the way on this really critical issue. And, you know, farming, white supremacy, racial justice, and the accountability of our government to actually serve us, the people, not just the powerful special interests, which is what they mostly do. You know, these are really, really critical issues. And, you know, in brief, how I got here was really as a mother and a medical doctor, very early in my career, you know, seeing these actually new epidemics of chronic disease, especially in children, asthma, cancers, developmental disabilities, diabetes, you name it. Really, our health going down the tubes in a way that was new at that time. This is going way back, ancient history. This was like the later 1970s. And early in my career, I thought, wow, what's going on? We didn't used to have this. And also, you know, it's very clear from common sense and also just in practicing healthcare that our health is not just made in the doctor's office. Our health is really determined long before people come in. And late stage treatment is not the way to go. You know, we really need to have healthy communities. We can't have healthy communities unless they are just communities, just and equitable. Yeah, so, you know, my role, I think, is to consult experts on the ground, like yourselves, to find out exactly, you know, how do we dismantle this, this institution which is broken? How do we dismantle it and recreate it in a way that's actually going to be representative and ensure that black farmers, you know, have a voice and they're not just outvoted. You know, they might have like a minority representation, but they could be outvoted every time. How do we construct this, you know, so that we're ensuring that the reparations happen, you know, that we compensate for this war on black farmers that's been going on for centuries. So we have to make the black farmers whole and enable them to come back. You know, we've got to do reparations on this, but then we have to ensure that going forward, they have a voice and they cannot be, you know, outvoted.
What kind of leadership do you see that could bring about a change at the U.S. Department of Agriculture? Mm-hmm. What kind of leadership would you recommend?
Well, from what I know of the current, you know, Commissioner Vilsack, from what I know, he needs to be dismissed, and he needs to be replaced so that the leadership within the department, you know, he, to my understanding, he is a representative of Big Ag, and he's all about serving the, you know, the corporate agriculture, which is not what you know, meets the needs of black farmers or the American public, for that matter. You know, the need for deep reform within the USDA is, you know, it's really across the board. And the abuse of black farmers is kind of a symbol of how that the entire department is lost, you know, it's kind of lost in the wilderness right now. It is serving industry across the board. It's not serving farmers. It's not serving the cause of racial justice, and it's certainly not serving public health or the sustainability. Agriculture needs to be sustainable. It's not like, oh, they've got to do this because of the climate, but just in order to ensure that agriculture, has the water is there for the farmers who need to irrigate, that the soil is still there. We're eroding topsoil big time. The practices of corporate agriculture are very harmful to small farmers, and they're very harmful to the sustainability of farming.
What I wanted to touch on next was the lack of accountability. We were talking about that in the last segment. The lack of accountability in terms of not just the government and both both parties and the current administration, but also the black leadership in our community. We're talking about black farmers specifically. During the break, off air, we were kind of talking about, we were running Nate Butch and some of his statements about black faces in high places. And I personally feel that in my core as someone who is kind of, I would say, even radicalized by the Obama administration, as that was the first time I was eligible to vote. There's a lot of excitement around that, an outsider, progressive, and then you look at how he governed for 8 years. Lots of right-wing plans enacted, lots of bankers bailed out, not a lot of people helped in terms of progressive politics. And that kind of showed a lot of people in my generation specifically that black faces in high places is not where it's at. That's not going to get the change that you want. It's great to see those representatives in those offices, but at the same time, if Barack Obama is going to govern like Mitt Romney, what are we doing? Is that really going to help us advance and move forward? If anything, I think it kind of set us back. And a lot of people are still stuck on that. Kamala Harris is a black woman. Well, that's great, but policy. And I would like more of our community to focus on that. So I really wanted to get your opinion on that, the performative leadership of a lot of people on both sides of the aisle.
Well, I would love for you to talk with my running mate, Professor Butch Ware, because he tells it like it is without any, restraint. And what he said on the Breakfast Club, which I really recommend everybody go and watch, what he said was that in Kamala Harris's campaign, that black identity has been weaponized to basically justify genocide against, Muslims and Arabs, basically. And I think that just puts it really in a painfully direct way that, like Martin Luther King said, at the end of the day, we need to judge people not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And it was really important for us to try to break down this, skin color apartheid, that white people could get into positions of power, but nobody else. So that's been broken down, but now we have to take it to the next level. We need racial and cultural and religious diversity in our elected officials. We have to have people from all walks of life, but the surface doesn't do it, and it's really important to hold people accountable to an agenda that actually serves the communities of color, people on the front lines who are locked out of decent lives. And we just see the system failing over and over again. It just really compels action as quickly as possible, and I'm really grateful that you are able to articulate this and give real substance.
Ways we can re-engage the wheels of democracy. However far we get, we really change the political landscape by us having the courage of the black farmers who've been fighting this, of the Muslim American community who's been standing up to say, no way, we are not going to vote for genocide. When we stand up and we stand together to stop genocide, to stop endless war, to stop the exploitation of black farmers and black workers for that matter, and working people in general, when we stand up and stand together for people, planet, and peace over profit, then we become an unstoppable coalition.
Beautiful. I think we're about out of time.
Well, thank you very much, Dr.
Thank
Stein.
you.
We really appreciate it on behalf of the USDA Coalition of Minority Employees and Black Farmers. I thank you so much, and we look forward to speaking with you again and working very closely with you to help to do something about the problems at the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so very much.
It's been great.
Great
This
discussion.
first conversation
Awesome.
to
Yes.
be continued.
Motivation.
tell me, tell me how things are going, and what do you think about what we are trying to do? I think you may have heard some of the things that were you on when I was talking about some of the things that Vice President Harris was saying she's going to do during her campaign? Okay, I want you to take some of those things and based on all the experiences and you have, along with us, have decades of experience with sexual abuse and hearing people make promises. What do you think is going to happen uh, under a presidency? And do you think that we are moving in the right direction to try to get her to be sensitive and change some of the things that we've been requesting, as it was in the letter that we sent her recently?
Good evening to all of you, and thank you for letting me join halfway through. I wasn't available to log in the first half, and I apologize for that. So thank you for letting me just pop in halfway through. I have a pretty good gist just from seeing the letter. So yes, I would be able to address those questions. I first of all want to say thank you to Gary for all the work you put in to get the word out. It is really working well. Voices across the country right now are listening, and I'm spreading the word like wildfire, if you will. If the USDA is going to sideline me from firefighting and being a first responder, then I'll
be careful with that wildfire comment.
yeah, I'll utilize that same leadership to spread the word for the truth. As far as yeah, and I'm just kind of like, you know, if I'm going to be sidelined from using my leadership over here, well, then I'm going to use it over there. They're not going to eliminate my voice. I believe in what the Constitution says for Black farmers and women in USDA and everyone. So, but thank you. And I just want to thank you, Lawrence and Waymon, just for that articulate letter and the history. And I've been able to direct people to that letter so that they can get more educated. And the comments that I hear back from young people, especially, is, oh, wow, this has been a systemic issue for a long time. And I say, yes, call your congresswoman, call your congressman, call your senator, call everybody, speak up. Let's have a huge movement across the US. Let's make it bigger and bigger. By the amount of calls I'm getting, it's not decreasing, it's increasing. Specifically from young people who I've been able to rub shoulders with as a first responder role. And both Black and white, Native American, there's a huge concern from everyone I talk to of how Black farmers have been treated and how this has not been even close to adequately addressed. So to address the letter that you all put so much effort and sweat and energy and everything into this very valuable letter, I think it is on the right track. Yes, definitely. And I think that what I'm focused on right now is keeping the momentum going and prompting the momentum to, from whatever my capacity can be, to push it even further and spearhead it even further into every Democrat, Republican, non-party person imaginable. Because we have to see change. We're at a juncture where we have to see change. There's an opportunity. There's a whole massive group of young people coming up that are saying enough's enough, and I couldn't agree with them more. And USDA is really getting a bright light shining on them right now because of the inadequacy. For instance, one comment that I hear, there's all these food recalls lately, and how much junk is into all of our food in the United States of America. And it all goes back to USDA because of broken, you name it, within USDA. USDA could have fixed a lot of this stuff that they're not fixing. And on top of it, there's a racism problem and a sexism problem. And so I think that the more people that are on board, the better off things are. Now, if Ms. Harris gets elected into the presidency here this next week, I think that you know, USDA. I really think that USDA under many different presidents could make good headway. More specifically, more positive headway under certain people if they were elected, for sure. But that being said, a lot of it is who gets put into that role that hopefully Vilsack gets fired from here soon. I wish he was fired already, but hopefully the American people speak up loud enough to where he can be fired, because he's earned that right to be fired by his action and inaction and horrific abuse of the civil rights system that he is doing and has done. I have a little side note about this. While Vilsack was flying over where Hurricane Helene made landfall up in North Carolina, he was flying overhead with Biden while people were still trapped in their houses, and first responders were not there in those locations. I find Vilsack to be a repulsive, inadequate, inept person to run USDA, and I cannot believe he has been allowed to continue on with all of this. So I think a lot of that is captured in the letter that you all wrote to Ms. Harris. And I am confident that she has some staff, at least at a minimum, some subordinates, like you mentioned, Waymon, that will look at the letter. And I think that we have some eyes and ears that are concerned at high levels because it's been going on too long, and we're not going to take a back seat. We're not taking a back seat. And we are united, Black, white, male, female. We're united as farmers and firefighters. And we are going to continue to make our voice even louder. And so thank you for that letter, because I've been able to share that truth and that history of truth, as well as my own story while I'm in the middle of this lawsuit to be able to be a firefighter after being sidelined out of my position for over 6 years now. By the way, with the lawsuit that I'm in, the agency today decided that we don't want to settle anything. And so they are the ones that are dragging all this stuff out. And I know we already know that, but Department of Agriculture needs to have a mandate to stop this nonsense. Stop this nonsense of racism, stop this nonsense of sexism, and pay people the damages, like EEOC says, to make people whole. I think we all know that being whole isn't something you can't erase the past damages. But I think with the letter, again, that you all wrote, that is a tremendous letter of fact, is how I like to think of it, because it lays out the factual history of the abuses to farmers and female firefighters, which impacts everyone, to be quite honest. And our nation right now is suffering because of Black farmers not being able to farm the land and women not being able to fight fires. The shortage is unbelievable across the nation. Fire chiefs are speaking up related to firefighting. Fire chiefs are speaking up. People of other agencies are speaking up. And there's talk right now of stripping USDA of the fire program, because it does need to be stripped out of USDA. They have proven they don't have the wherewithal to run a fire program. I think that is very obvious. And so sorry to jump all over the place. I kind of wanted to fit in what I could as far as just my thoughts on the incredibly professional letter that Waymon and Lawrence, you wrote. And thanks again to Gary for helping us and supporting to get the word out for justice. It is really becoming a bigger story because of all of your efforts.
Last night, I moderated a panel discussion about the impact of Black men on the on the presidential election. And as you know, or may not know, but it's been widely reported in the press that Black men, that there's a reluctance of Black men to support Kamala Harris. And I'm not so sure where that's coming from. I mean, we're certainly not a monolith. And as we saw last night on the panel discussion, which is up on YouTube and on the homepage of Black Men in America, we had men ranging from 34 years old to 86 years old, and everybody had an opinion about how this would be impacted. People from the barbershop, we even had Waymon in there, so it wasn't just Black men. Waymon got his do trimmed up a little bit, so everybody was in there. And from what I see, and I don't see a wide swath of Black men not willing to support Kamala Harris. I just don't see it. And You know, and now, do I know some black men who are said they're going to vote for Trump? Yeah, I can count them on one hand. And when I ask them why, they say things like, well, the economy. So I said, well, what about the economy? They can't really, they can't really come up with anything. Then they'll say, well, the stimulus check. Trump gave us the stimulus check. They're uninformed. I'm like, that didn't come from Donald Trump. He withheld the money. No other person, no other president has put his name on a check like that. That's that narcissistic behavior. I heard somebody, another guy today, black guy today, and he said, Trump talks like I talk. And I wanted to say, you're an idiot. What do you mean Trump talks like you talk? Well, he's just unvarnished. The biggest job in the world, and that's the bar. You can play handball against the curb if that's the bar. So, but by and large, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think black men, and I'll say this, I think Trump is trying to throw the damn thing. I don't think he wants the job. I mean, he's already unhinged, but some of the things he said in the last 24, 48 hours, I think he knows what the job is. He knows it's going to be twice as hard now. He's not the same guy. And he's intellectually lazy. And I think he's lazy all along, across the board. He knows nothing about service. I just don't think he wants the job. He's going to say that it was stolen from him. So he's already been laying that out for months. So he's trying to get a way out. But honestly, deep inside, I think if you put him on a pile, well, if you put him on a pile, he would explode. But if you really deep inside, I don't think he wants the job.
And I think that you're correct. We had different views. We didn't always agree, but we didn't always disagree either. I think on the issue of Trump becoming president, it was very clear.
Everybody agreed.
Very clear. A group of black men, we've been scolded one or two times in the past month or so, but I think the scolding was very misplaced, and I think to suddenly put a burden on black men, maybe being the cause of Kamala Harris losing the election, I think is utter poppycock and nonsense. And I think your show last night on your show, it was very clear that we didn't all disagree on everything, but we were in concert in terms of our feelings about the idea that Trump is going to return again. So you were on that call last night, Waymon. What is your thinking about your view from about what was discussed last night?
Had a couple of reactions. I've never been a white guy sitting in a black barber shop before. So all I needed was to hear the liniment and smell the liniment and hear the shears going. But yeah, it was a curious conversation because I was thinking all the time, all the way through that Barack had chided black men in his speech a week or two earlier for not being more demonstrative in their support for Kamala. And I heard two reactions from black men about that. One reaction was, we needed it, so let's get on down the road. And another reaction was, black men didn't need to be chided by the president. So, if I were a black man, I don't know how I would have responded. I wasn't offended one way or another about it. I think there are a lot of people that need to be kicked in the butt to get on the Kamala Harris train. But as a group of men, those men, Gary, if I understood it right, those men know each other. right? And so there's a
No,
lot.
no.
No.
Some of them met. Some of them only met last night.
Oh. Well, they treated each other
Now,
as if
three
they
of
were
them,
long ago friends,
yeah,
far away. Yeah.
three of them, CJ, Carlos, and Spivey, Bill, they've known each other for about a year and a half, 2 years. But all the other guests were just people that I randomly selected from different parts of the country.
Oh wow, it was amazing. It was more amazing than I thought. Then I thought they were all buddies, and so they were going to be nice to each other. But yeah, there was a camaraderie there, a commonality of spirit, respect for mild diversity of opinion. Uh, I thought it was really pretty cool the way Kwame talked to CJ, and it didn't sound terribly offensive from my vantage point, but I thought it was really pretty awesome that he would call you and get CJ's phone number this morning to kind of smooth whatever feathers need to be smooth. That says a lot about a senior citizen talking to a younger man. But yeah, I was intrigued by the whole thing and really pleased to know that Kamala has a lot of support as those men are telling their stories about supporting her.
We've been going on, and I want you to unmute yourself. What are you hearing out there about the election coming up, and what are you feeling, and what are you hearing out there? Because we are only a few days away from probably one of the most historical elections maybe in American history, because of what is going to happen on that day, but also what may happen um, the following days of this election. Because I think that, and I would like to see what you're thinking and what you're hearing out there in the Western region. What are you hearing?
Thank you for asking, Lawrence. I've been hearing really a mix, I would say, of both sides, but I would say overall the underlying message is let's just cut through this nonsense and just everyone do their jobs. Like, let's just, how about everyone just does their job? The president's the president. And so, just because there's so much drama, and I know that there's drama often in presidential elections, but I think overall people are getting really sick of the drama. Is really what I'm hearing is like, just let's get over it. And especially young people, but really people of all ages. It's like the whole I think we're at a really good point actually nationally, where I think that if we get the right leaders in the right positions, we can really make some headway to fix a lot of issues that are happening and going on. And I also talk to people who are more moderate, and don't really pick a political party and say, well, I'm not going to vote for either one. And I do chat with them as well, just as much as I would of anybody from any political party, because do your pros and cons list and put your effort where it's going to be for the good. Don't just throw something out there in the dark. And not as a judgment, like, I'm not saying don't vote for that person because they don't have a chance. But for instance, Jill Stein has a pretty good following. And so I think she has some messages that are important. But you also have to look at the other side of who is the potential actual, typically two players that could or couldn't win. And so I've basically just been, I'm not really one to tell you what to do, but I do like to question. And then sometimes I have friends of all walks of life that also, ask me questions that prompt me of maybe better ways to fight for civil rights and justice, for instance. And so I know that doesn't really pinpoint anything, but it's really, truly a mix. And so I encourage people to look at the facts of the issues when they're either confused, conflicted, or not really certain which direction they're going to go, especially the undecided voters right now. Hopefully, I know that's not, exactly what some of you guys kind of have described, but that's really more of what I'm hearing, and especially in the west part of the U.S.
Well, I want to thank all of you, Pamela, Waymon, and Stovall is listening. Don't know why you all can't hear him. I looked at my mute, and my mute is off, but I can hear him loud and clear. So we've been running into all kinds of technical difficulty. And I think it could be possibly because of the kind of show that we have. I would like to thank Gary Johnson. I'd like to thank you, Pamela Messal. I'd like to thank Michael Stovall for listening. I'd like to thank Marcel Reid, who puts up with us, and Waymon Hinson, and a whole lot of others. So I want to thank you all for staying on. We're now at 9:21, and I would hope that, Gary, there may be something that we, about an hour-long piece or 30-minute piece that we can put together with regard to this show and share with many of the people who we are linked to. So if and by the way, we couldn't have done this without Gary Johnson. I just can't thank him enough. So what we are hoping is we can maybe put something together that we can share. But if I had to close the show tonight, I would go back to comments made by Dr. Jill Stein. I would go back to comments made by Dr. Cornel West and others, farmers, and as well as the analysts on the show. You all have contributed a great deal of your time and your effort. And every time I call, you all speak up and show up. So I want to thank the three of you all, the four of you all, because I do have Michael Stovall on the other line. And Gary, I'm going to turn it over to you to do what you do best. And I would think that maybe there's something to be salvaged.
Oh, we'll always find something. We're going to turn this into something, and we'll mix it up. And because we have a tailwind with us, and so we need to take advantage of that.
Yep.
Despite what the ghosts and goblins are trying to do to us tonight, we're going to make it happen.
Well, I want to say thank you all, and good night, and good night to those listeners who will see a segment of what we've talked about tonight. Thank you all for your time and your effort, and wishing you the best in the days to come. Thank you and good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Please sign your name on the dotted line.